What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Barefoot Garage. Today, we're putting an oil cooler on my 914. Alright guys, if you have been following along with my Haltech 914 project, you can see I've been doing a little bit of tuning. One of the things that is a byproduct or has happened since I switched from the D-Jet to the Haltech is the oil temperatures have gone like through the roof. Like normal driving, C260, which depending on who you ask about oil is always a fight. That's probably too much. So I'm gonna address that with an oil cooler. The stock one may be a little bit clogged. Running the wasted spark probably puts a little more heat in the engine. I'm running a little bit more timing than I used to be. So kind of a lot of contributing factors to get to that. So it's one of the reasons I made the double grill. And you can see I have my stock one and my double grill, so I can make my choice there. But we're gonna go ahead and work on an oil cooler. I've chosen a pretty big cooler because I really don't wanna have to run a fan, and it's more complicated. I really want to have a big fat cooler, a little extra fluid capacity, and I'm going to use a thermostatic sandwich plate there on the oil filter. So let's take a look at the parts that I have, and I'll show you what we're going to do in the step 1 video, and then we'll have a part 2 once we're ready to make lines, hook it up, and get it in the car, and then we'll take it out for a test spin. All right, so let's start a debate on the internet here. Nice Bosch filter, Kindle GT1 competition is what I've been running the car for quite a while. My understanding from who I consider, and won't say who it is, to be the best, most authoritative source on these Type 4, these air-cooled engines, says that used to be a good oil. It's not anymore. So I have not ponied up for the Driven GP1. I have a few more quarts of this I'm gonna run, but the oil in the car has been in there for probably 3 tanks, couple hundred miles, and it's been heat cycled to 260 like a bunch of times, so it's pretty much garbage. I have sent out some oil samples in the past with that Kindle GT1, and they come back pretty good. Wear on the car looks good. The oil doesn't seem to be breaking down. The zinc is nice and high in that sample, so I'm pretty happy with it, but I will step up to something better because I don't really ready to rebuild that engine if I can avoid it. So as far as oil goes, that's what I've been using. Maybe part of my problem. It just depends on a million different things. The biggest thing is it's really hot in Florida. We get stop and go traffic. I'm sitting still in the car with the engine running, and it's just getting heat soaked, and that's it. I just can't get enough heat out of the engine. So let's take a look at the oil cooler parts. All right, here's what we have so far. Starting with this really nice Derale cooler, this dash tin in and out, and it is 1.5 inches thick. I do not remember how many rows it is. It is way overkill. I think this thing holds almost a quart or half a quart by itself. So we're doing dash 10. I want to go with the bigger size so that if we ever upgrade the motor in the future, we have plenty of oil cooler capacity. So comes with the O-ring adapters to go to dash 10. I don't know, I may not use these, I may use them, but I bought some of this high temp DEI gold blingy heat wrap so I can pretend to be a McLaren F1. Probably will use that. The other big important part here is this MoCal thermostatic oil cooler sandwich plate. So basically this goes up to the car, probably actually goes this way, and then it comes out in dash 10. The adapters are in here. There's a cool little adapter that goes in here, and then your oil filter goes on from the bottom. You can see that it is controlled with a little spring or a little heat element in there, and it opens, I believe it's 180 degrees. So that should cycle the oil once the temperature is up, out through the cooler, back and around. So I've debated about where to put the oil, and you may have seen a post on social media about that. And so I sourced this really awesome NACA duct and some hose to go with it. Initially, I was planning to put the NACA duct right here. That may still be the plan, I'm not sure. I have also considered using this reverse NACA duct as a scoop and cutting it out here and glassing that into the body, or just putting this into the body so I can pull air in. It kind of depends on where the cooler goes. If the cooler is going to sit like this, I have to be able to pull in air and just push it straight over it. If the cooler is going to sit pretty close behind this isn't going to really work unless I just basically gut this and turn it into just an open hole, which I'm not super big fan of. So I really want to make this work because it is super sweet and goes with a period Porsche to have cool NACA ducts. So The next thing we're gonna do is talk about where the cooler is gonna go. So I'm gonna get the car jacked up and we're gonna kind of go through some of the placements. In my head, I had picked a spot, but now I'm kind of having some debate. So we're gonna jack up the car, we're gonna learn this together. I have not done this in advance and now I'm talking to you about it. So let's figure it out together. All right, car's jacked up and I've cleaned out the wheel well. I had somebody once tell me if you're gonna go to a show, you either need to be fully clean or fully coming from an adventure. So before the last PCA event, I decided to have an adventure and that's what's left over from underneath the car. So now we get a quick brush of that off. You can see that stiffening kit. I put that on a long time ago here. My terrible KYB shocks. I got that sway bar, stock sway bar and everything. So this is in general where I'm hoping to put this. No, I'm not putting in a front cooler, and I'll show you why. The front cooler needs the lines to come out here and go up to the front. You can see this is completely fiberglassed in. I do not have the ability to remove the rocker to run lines up to the front. There are still air conditioning lines underneath that. And based on mostly keeping the body pretty original, I don't want to cut that off until I absolutely have to, because I'm going to have to cut the flare and I just don't know how this is going to go back together. It's fiberglass into this little support here, so no front cooler. So I've debated about a couple of spots. The first one being up in this giant cavity here that I'll try and show you guys some light. There is a huge amount of area. There's already 2 holes way up there in the front where the air conditioning lines ran, and I could bring it out the J-pipe, forget the J-pipe, through that hole below the battery, come to my oil cooler right here. The issue with that, at least from right now, is how do you get the air in? So you can see steel up here. This is all fiberglass to about right here. So all of this is fiberglass, and it makes it super easy to cut out or change or do whatever I want, or perforate it or put some mesh in, and the cooler does fit there, and I'll show you guys that in a couple of minutes. The issue becomes just making sure that we get enough fresh air in it and protecting it from road debris. So should we have done that, we will want to make sure that there's a shield or something here so that this, while it's slinging water and sand and all of the junk that you see in the car here, it is not slinging anything hazardous at the oil cooler. Now, it would have to sit in here kind of like a bookshelf. It would slide into this slot, lines going that way, and we'd have to kind of probably weld some tabs off here, possibly off here, maybe even have something that went all the way through. So that is option number 1. All right, option number 2, under the trunk floor, underneath the car. So let's go into there and take a look. So right now you can see this real estate is pretty wide open. My exhaust is pretty much straight through. It doesn't take up any of this beautiful space right here. I've also seen people mount it up here in this area, kind of flat. I'm not super crazy about it being that close to the heat exchanger and the shock, and just this is moving, and if you look closely you can see a witness mark right here where the sway bar actually hit this. That means this sway bar was all the way up here, and so that makes me a little bit nervous. Probably need some stiffer springs, as hard as I've cornered this a few times, but that tells me that the sway bar could be here, basically all the way here, and so your only real estate is way over here out on top of the transmission. Now, it's nice and close to the engine, but in that position, I almost feel like you really need a fan. The other option I've considered is right here, something in this kind of an area here. So we'll grab the cooler in a couple minutes and show you these choices here, but this is an area that, while this is the exhaust, there's a ton of air around here, and I feel pretty comfortable that this, while behind the tire, is pretty safe. I could run the cooler lines and kind of bolt them through to the floor, or to this, or to whatever else to get them up to where they needed to be. And I could put in my NACA duct and plumb it possibly up here or through the inside or something like that, and bring some really fresh cold air into that. Not that it would necessarily need it back here, because there's going to be a ton of free-flowing air. So let me grab the cooler and we'll test fit each of those locations. All right, so this is location number 1. Way up like this. I probably would mount that bottom tab right there, and honestly, that is looking pretty promising. And maybe with that, we only perforate the side of the car if we're not getting the necessary airflow. Now, with the tire here and open from the bottom, I think we could get plenty of air in here. It is pretty clean. I think it'd be pretty easy to make tabs to mount this. And this is looking like a pretty promising choice. Let's take a look at number 2. All right, I'm gonna lay the camera down and shoot it up at the floor of the car, and hopefully that gives us a view of number 2 here. So I'm gonna put you guys right here. You can kind of see, hopefully, above the heat exchanger there. So the next option is what I've seen a lot of people do. Actually, I've seen this in person a couple of times, is something like this. Something right there. You know, I don't want to get too close to that shock, and I am concerned about that sway bar coming up. That is not my favorite, considering the size of the oil cooler I bought. I guess it would be possible to also run it kind of this way. You know, I'm not crazy about that, but I think that is a solid option. I think the mounting would be incredibly easy. I would just tack some tabs to the bottom of the floor and just bolt it in place. So this way maybe, but this way not going to be a good way to go. All right, option 3. I'm going to try to do this one-handed as best I can. I did purchase probably a comically large size cooler, but I like it. I think it's cool. This is the option I think would be really the third option here. It's going to get a ton of air. It wouldn't require any ducting. I am a little concerned about that exhaust, but I don't think that would be too big a deal. We will have to deal with the oil lines around the sway bar and kind of a little bit close to where the tire and wheel well are for my taste. Probably have to put a 90 on that, bring it in and come across. So I think this is a good option, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna contemplate this for a little bit, but not a bad place. This would by far be the most difficult way to mount it and take the most creative engineering here. Probably have to take that heat shield out and build a whole bracketry in and do quite a bit of welding. So lots to consider and lots of choices here. So I'm gonna turn off the camera and ponder it for a little bit, and then we'll let you know what we decide. All right, after some debate, soul searching, and test spinning with a little cardboard, option 1 is the winner. That's my original plan. That's where I wanted to do the whole time. That's how I sized the cooler, and I started to second guess it. But the good news is it's not permanent. If I want a couple tabs in here, I can cut them back off and move it later and make new lines. So I'm gonna put the camera up and I'll show you guys kind of how that's gonna fit and how I think I'm gonna mount it. And I'm gonna just kind of start making mounts, and then we'll see how many we think we need. So let's take a look. All right, so you guys can see down to that recess here, I've covered my cooler with tape so I don't scratch it all up. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a pretty strong point here for the suspension mounted console, and we're going to get that tab and we're going to weld it right in there. So I don't know if I'm going to have it bolt to that tab or if I'm going to put studs on the tab, whatever it is like that. So it's going to sit right here. And then our second one, it's very hard to show, it's going to be something like this. So I'll probably have it come across, and then I may triangulate it. I got to figure out if I want to put the tabs on the back so it can slot in, or if I'm put them on the front, and I'll go in and then I'll come back and then I'll bolt it. So the good news is if I do something right here, I have access to the backside, and so I really just want to put something across. Honestly, I may even use something that's got some strength to it, so I don't have to triangulate the crap out of this to make sure that it is strong. So I am thinking about putting one at the bottom corner. That top corner is so far up there, I don't think I can grind and weld very well. If I do anything up there, it would just be like a couple of studs to hang it and support some of the weight in this direction. I'm not worried about this way. I'm not worried about forces, you know, side to side. It's this motion. There's a lot of stress on those tabs, and those hoses up there have to make a pretty quick 45, and then they'll be able to go through those holes that I already have. Right here is the battery. So before we do any welding, we're going to take the battery out and make sure that that is safe and isolated. We're going to unplug the ECU before we weld, and we'll probably start with this bottom tab and just one quick little piece here and see how it goes. Let's do it. Since you guys probably are tired of watching me cut plate and drill holes, here's what we got. I got that plate down to the bottom, just some temporary hardware to hold it in, and I'm going to test a piece of angle iron here. This piece of sheet metal on this side is a little thin, so I may build a little base plate and kind of tack it all the way around and then weld this to it. And then I think what I'm going to try to do once these two are in is to build a leg, not that bolts, but just that holds some of the weight at the bottom. And it can just kind of sit on this. Maybe I'll put a little rubber on this and it'll just sit in place there. So let's go over to the car and see how it fits. All right, this is our moment of truth here. Let's go ahead and slide this joker in and see how it's doing. So ideally, this bottom bracket is going to line up right here. Looks like that still needs a little bit of notching. Try not to knock the camera down. That top one seems to line up pretty good. So I think we're going to put a little plate behind that top one and call that a day. And this bottom one, not very happy with that. This was supposed to sit like way over here. And so I think when I cut that, I think I bolted it on the wrong way. All right. Let's go take 2 with the bottom bracket. All right, take 2, much better. I just didn't quite have that right. So that bottom bracket will weld in there like that. I'll probably nip off this corner here. And we will plate that top one. And then what I'll probably do is make it so that I can unbolt it. It looks like I've got both my tabs on the inside. So I'll be able to kind of pull it out and wiggle it around these. That angle iron actually looks like it's going to be pretty strong. It's got lateral stability in both direction, you know, fore, aft, and left, right. So I have access to weld and clean these up. The only thing I'm worried about on that front one is how am I going to make sure that I can support that front end. That might not be a case, but I really want this car to be built, you know, beyond the shadow of a doubt. So I probably am going to try to get some support in there for the front. And so maybe I can get access through, you know, through the bottom down here or something. So we'll get these first 2 tacked in and then we'll worry about getting this thing back out. So 1 hole to drill here, some grinding to do, and make a little base plate for that top to support that. Probably get some little bit thinner material battery out, and then we'll be welding. Okay, I think we have a solution. I've got tabs made, I've got a plate made. We're gonna tack the plate to the car, and then we're gonna get it as level as we can. You can kind of see the car is jacked up only in this corner. If I really wanted to, I'd jack up the front and get it perfectly level front to back, but I really don't think it makes that big of a difference. So I'm gonna do my best estimations to kind of keeping it square up and down with the car, just because I want to. So we'll do that as best as we can, probably key it off of this. And so tack that in, get it in, tack that in, and then we'll go ahead and pull the cooler out. And then what my goal is, if I can get some light up there, is to reach in from below and make a mark for some kind of a front foot or front shelf, just to make sure that that's got plenty of support. You know, these two are gonna be pretty beefy, but we're gonna get to welding, and then we'll see how it looks when that's all done. Let's weld. All right, the cooler is in place. So unfortunately, I painted myself into a corner a little bit here. This thing has 4 tabs, and it's so snug kind of in both directions that as I pull the cooler back, I don't have enough space to bend the corner and get past these. So in the end, we may end up having to sacrifice that upper tab up there so that we have a little bit of room where we may have to bend this out a little bit. So I'm gonna work on a way to get this out for now, temporarily. If I can get an angle on it or something, So we're gonna get this out, and then we're gonna go ahead and jump on to the next step and look at the sandwich plate adapter. Basically, the goal tonight is to get it dry fitted so that I can order the amount of AN lines and the right angle fittings. So we're gonna drain the oil, pull the oil filter off, let's put that sandwich adapter on there just hand tight, and kind of look at what we need as far as oil lines, and then we'll wait for those, and I'll finish up these mounts and get that all fine-tuned while we wait. All right, I'm gonna leave that oil cooler in there just for estimation of lines. I kind of know how much I need, but I'm gonna wait till get this sandwich plate adapter in. And really the other thing I'm trying to figure out is which AN fittings do I need? Do I need a straight, 90, swivel, 45 swivel, whatever it is like that. So let's jump into the car and take a look. So welcome under my 914 here. So you can see I removed the J pipe from right here going up to where the heater fan would be, which I don't have, and the kind of curly Q S pipe from the fan shroud comes over here to the heat exchanger and then eventually supplies your heat. So those are out of the way, and my oil filter is out of the way as well. So I do know, or at least I believe, they make some bolt-on adapters that kind of go into this place. Now that I look at it, this oil cooler looks fine. There's not anything that changed while I was doing the Haltech conversion that would have caused it to immediately stop working. So let me see if I can get the camera set up, and I'll show you what's going to happen with this adapter here. So I've got my Mocal thermostatic adapter. Like I said, I think it's 180 degrees, and it comes with this cool little fitting that basically screws onto what you have like an oil filter, and this holds the sandwich plate in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hold this sandwich plate up here over the threads. I'm going to screw this guy down just hand tight for mock-up purposes, and that is exactly what I was hoping for. So now from there, new oil filter goes on from the bottom. It'll stick down a little further, but it didn't even come down to the cross member, so I'm not really worried about that. So to me, I can put straight adapters on there. So what I've got that came with this kit are these, whatever that thread is, to a -10 male thread. So let me grab one of those, we'll slide it in place, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So these come with an O-ring, and they just go into here. And so I've ordered an adjustable AN wrench from China / eBay. And so what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to bring the oil lines out, and either I'm going to go back up here through the J-pipe hole, or what actually looks like a better path is to come past the oil cooler, past the heat pipe, down through, let me get the camera, here above this J-pipe, above this brake line, and just right through here, because that is actually the oil cooler right up there. Let me see if I can show you guys that. There's the cooler. So that may be a little bit better path. I can put 90s on that and face them down, push the oil cooler in, drop those lines down, snake them through, connect that, and then I'll go ahead and put everything else in. I'll let you see how that's going to work. I'm going to try and get a piece of hose and try to estimate approximately what I need. I think a 3-foot piece will do it, but we're going to measure that up, and then we'll order out some lines, and we'll be patient until that stuff gets here. All right, so I took this piece of heat shield insulation. This is 32 inches. This is totally sufficient for the lower line, and probably needs an extra 10, 12 inches for the upper line. So I'll probably get a 36-inch piece and a 48-inch piece, or I'll just get a 10-foot piece and separate it out and have plenty of room. So like I said, I'll make those lines on the top, probably with a 90 on each of them, or maybe a 90 at the bottom and a 45 at the top to give it a little bit more room. And we'll drop them down where the cooler is, bring it around, get it exactly where I route it, and then we'll go ahead and make those ends. So that's where we're gonna leave off for the Barefoot Garage tonight. It's gonna be a little bit before part 2, depending on how fast shipping parts come and how quickly I can get all of those AN parts. So as always, stay tuned to the Barefoot Garage right here on YouTube. Subscribe if you like 914s, or if you like other cool projects, just stuff we're doing in the garage. In between episodes, you can follow us at Barefoot Garage Jacks over on Instagram. Get out there and drive those 914s, and we'll see you in the garage.